Hello and welcome to 3 days in my workshop. In this video I'll be doing some gluing. There are some instruments that have literally fallen apart. There's a violin with a lot of cracked varnish. I'll be setting up a couple of instruments and doing a bow rehair. Of course there's going to be bridges. I'm seeing a couple of clients. I think you will really like one of the clients. He's an amazing cellist. Anyway, so hang around and watch me work over the next 3 days. Good morning. I have my coffee. Number 1, I am currently restoring this beautiful old German Magini copy and it needs a whole lot of varnish work done. Number 2, this is just a straightforward polish. Number 3, I have to put together one of my student violins. And then I have a few instruments that need gluing jobs, and so a lot of the gluing that I do takes about between 6 hours and a day to dry. So you'll see a lot of different instruments that I just take one step further in gluing. I think I've got 3 that I'm currently working on. And then also there are some bow rehairs, so highly ambitious. I might only get through half of what I was thinking, but I'm going to do my best. Okay, let's get started. I think the very first thing I want to do is I want to work on this Magini copy. It's an older German instrument, so I just want the varnish to look a whole lot better. So I'm just going to put down some oil ground color that'll just give it a bit of color. Then I'll just add some varnish so the worn look is nice. I mean, it's part of the instrument's story. I actually had to reset the neck, and in another repair video I will actually show you how I do that, because it means fully removing the neck and then refitting it with the fingerboard angle being 100% correct. Well, actually I do it a tiny bit higher because it often settles in quite quickly and comes down by about 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter. So I'm first going to just give this area a quick sand where I've been working, and then I'm going to use a tiny bit of glue, and that will soak into the timber. And when I do the ground varnish on here, it won't soak in quite as much because the glue will stop it from soaking in. It's something that a lot of the old makers have done. They've always found, when they've done research, they often found a protein layer in the varnish, and my theory is that it's basically just good old glue. They sometimes use some chemicals in there as well, boron being one of them, and in my opinion it's just to make sure that the timber is a little bit more stable, lasts longer. Okay, there we go. Alright, I'm going to let that dry. Alright, next, just to give me a feeling of having finished something, I am going to just put some strings on this student violin. It's my Grawert violin. It's only available in Australia for the simple reason I literally make no profit of these instruments. With this one I made a new bridge, which I always do. The way they come from China, the bridges are dreadful. I also plane the fingerboard, so we basically fit the pegs and I fit the sound post. Oh yes, and also the tailpiece I optimize. Alright, here we go. So I'm just putting some grease on the fine tuners of this tailpiece, and then I will put the strings on. I just discovered that the end pin is a little bit long. That's often the case, so I'm going to, I'll make it fit a little bit. I use a reamer. You've got to be really careful because it is so easy to make it go too far, but here we are. That is perfect now. Okay. Now, strings. Here we go. I'm going to use Eva Perazzi strings, and you can watch me put them on. You won't believe what just happened. Well, I think you saw it. The tail gut actually broke. I have no idea where the rest of this is, but that's really bad. You know, like that whole thing here just slipped off. I'm gonna definitely write to my supplier about this, because that kind of stuff just can't happen. But I'm really happy it happened to me, and that's why I keep testing instruments carefully, and I give a really good warranty. Alright, so I'm going to use a Wittner tail gut instead. Wittner tail gut is a really good German company, and all the stuff they make is good quality. I particularly like their tail pieces, tail guts and fine tuners. Not as much of a fan of their composite chin rests. I find them a little bit, I don't know, I like timber, but you know, that's just me. Okay, let's just check the length here. It's also very frightening when the tail gut goes. I'm just going to cut the ends off one side and do the other side. You don't want a tail gut too short, so you don't want the edge of the tail piece to sit really close to the saddle down the bottom. So I burn the ends and that expands the plastic, the nylon on these, and makes it just that little bit more sturdy. So yes, so putting the tail gut on, I make sure that there's a little bit of length of tail gut over the saddle. So this down here is called the saddle. This ebony piece down here, the string that holds the tail piece together, is called the tail gut. And I make sure that there's a little bit of space, because you want the tail piece to vibrate freely, allowing the strings to vibrate more freely. Let's try again. This time the tail gut will hold. Just checking the string heights as well. And I'm just going to put a label inside the instrument, and then I'm going to just hang it up, let the string settle in a bit before I do the final sound post adjustment, final adjustments. I'll recheck the string heights. I think they might be a tiny bit high, but yeah, I think they may be high by about 1/4 of a millimeter. It's just important to get it just right for the player. Okay, here we go. Okay, fantastic. I'm going to hang that up and let it rest. Thanks to the unexpected tail gut explosion, it took me quite a bit longer. So I think by now this glue should have dried enough, yes it has, for me to put the varnish over the top. So that's really good. Wow. I'm going to use a brownish, reddish, golden sort of a color. Okay, here we go. This is linseed oil and a little bit of my oil color that I use. Now, I would never do this on an expensive Italian violin, but this is an old German violin. I don't want to make it too expensive for the clients, the repair. So this is actually a very good solution to add color quickly and make it look really good. Take a look at this. This already looks a whole lot better. Now on some of this area I'm going to use a slightly more red color. I believe this is some kind of madder color, so here we go. There we go, that already looks a whole lot better. I want to do a bit of varnishing just around here as well, just so it's not such a sharp line, it's a little bit less abrupt. I think that looks a lot better already, rather than that really sharp, abrupt sort of look. Alright, I'm going to hang that up and let that dry now. The next step for that will be adding new varnish. Okay, next thing I have to do is, I have this violin where like it's basically just been left to fall apart, and I need to just glue one little crack that's down the bottom here. You can just see it there. Oh, actually there's 2 cracks. Okay, I'm gonna have to open this, take this rib off slightly further than it is now. There we go. It's just so I can bend it up far enough to put the clamp on. that should be fine. I've got one of these clamps. It clamps onto the instrument here, onto the top plate, and then you just pull this one and it pulls everything together. So I'm putting some glue into the crack and I rub it in using my finger. It rubs it in. You want it to come out the other side, so that's important. I'm going to put a tiny bit on the other side as well, just to make sure it's all going through. Beautiful. Alright, just going to clean off the excess glue and I'll put this clamp on. Oh, there's another one. So I've got the clamp on and tightened here, and then I just gently turn this and it holds the crack in place. So I can glue, take my little heat gun and just heat it up a tiny bit, the area. That's all the heat I'm going to give that, and I am just going to pop that back there to dry, and then I'll do the next bit of gluing. Okay, so the next bit is the other side of that same instrument, which is the back. The whole back join has actually come apart. So I'm gluing it in stages. You can see the button has kind of broken off, but the good thing is there's actually a bit of wood here that's holding it together, so I'll be able to glue it back together. I'll have to reinforce all that as well. Yeah, I think I might start up the top, to be honest. Let's have a look. Yeah, I'll do the top. I think that's going to be much better. And I'm going to use these beautiful little clamps to clamp on the button. They're absolutely tiny and beautiful. Alright, so first of all, I'm going to rub glue into these cracks. Yeah, it's starting to ooze out the other side. That's really good. That's what we want. I'll put on this clamp. You can actually, as I'm putting on the clamp, you can actually see how the glue is just oozing out of these cracks here. So that's great. And it's also, you can also see it coming out of here. Now I need to make sure that the crack is perfectly aligned up the top, but it is. And now I'll just glue on the button at the same time. So this is one side. There we go. That's looking good. And now I will do this side as well. Now I've just got to level this out. I'll be very careful not to get any glue onto the clamp or where I'm holding the clamp, otherwise it can strip off the varnish. I might actually use a tiny bit of Glad wrap on this clamp just to make sure it doesn't stick. There we go. Cover this with Glad wrap. There we go. Now I need one more little clamp. That'll do. Okay, this is going to work hopefully. Just need to make sure that this is all level. That's looking really good. I am happy with that. Well, I may as well glue the bottom half of this. Once this back join is glued, I'll be putting in little reinforcements to make sure it doesn't come apart again. But the problem with this instrument, it stayed in a hot room for a really long time. Oh yeah, that's oozing out nicely. That's what we want. Okay, I'll put this clamp on, tie it together. Beautiful. So, I'm going to use the heat gun to heat this up again. And I am going to let this dry till this evening. So it's mid-morning. There's a chance that I can take these clamps off this evening. I'll probably end up working into the evening, so you might see me put the reinforcement on, which would be exciting. The whole bottom block just fell out. I'll be gluing that one back in as well. Okay, coffee sip break. Nice. Might clean up my workbench just a little bit. that's better. Now, this is another violin, just like the other one, that has basically fallen apart. And again, the bottom block has fallen out. Now, the thing I have to do is to reinforce the back. So that'll be the first thing I'll do. I'll use some hardwood and just reinforce that. So I'll make these small reinforcement cleats. The grain on the wood is slightly angled, which means it gives it more stability. Alright, so I'm going to just do the final finish on this using a plane. So I'm going to do probably 3 cleats here. They're hardwood, as in maple. Alright, so I just want to bevel the edges. Here we go. Okay. It's looking good. It's got nicely beveled edges, and then I can glue that on like that, and once it's glued on I will just round it off nicely. So next one, basically using cello clamps on this, like these bigger ones, because I'm working on the back with the ribs being on and the ribs are too tall. I prefer smaller clamps usually. There we go. And the third one. Okay, so that's going to dry for a little while. I'll put it back over to the other side here. This is a bit of an unusual one, like the bass bar in this is ridiculously huge. So I'm actually going to ask the client if I can cut this down a bit, because it is just, the instrument's just not going to sound good. But the bottom join here has also come apart, so that's the next thing I need to glue. But I just realized, let me just see if I might be able to, yeah. I made this little clamp for the back, and it's kind of clever. So I cut out the shape of the instrument, but then if you look this way, it's slightly angled. So I can, when I put this in here and then jam it down a little bit, it will actually force the two sides together. So yeah, it was quite a clever little idea that I had there, I thought. Kind of proud of myself. So I'm just going to glue it like that. Normally I use these crack clamps for these cracks, but I am currently using the other one for that back that I was working on before. So this is good. Kind of excited. Alright, let's do this. Okay, fantastic. Now, here we go. Using my ingenious crack clamp. It's just so cool. It's come together perfectly. That is just beautiful. One thing I may do, because one part of it is jutting up a little bit, so I might actually just clamp this down very gently. It's just pushing up a tiny bit, so I'll need to gently force it down, but that is easily done. Beautiful. That'll just need to rest and glue. I'm going to take a little lunch break. It is not the nicest day out today. It's a bit cooler, a little bit windy, a bit cloudy. So I might not go for too much of a bike ride. Anyway, I'm off for lunch. But first, I just wanted to hit it with the heat gun a tiny bit. Okay, now I'm off for lunch. Glue off and okay. Like I said, it is a little bit cloudy, not too bad, and a little bit windy. The weather didn't end up so bad after all. That's a pretty amazing bridge they're building at the moment. I kind of get pretty interested in constructions, but if you look at that, it's kind of a little bit like a violin with a bridge on top, isn't it? It's just the other way around. We need a giant bow to play these. Imagine that. Okay, so I am back from lunch. Just went to one of my favourite cafes in South Brisbane. Went for a bit of a bike ride, as you saw. The thing is, I just looked at my diary and I actually have 9 clients in a space of a very short time. I don't know if my clients will let me film. I might, you might see a tiny bit. Okay, so 4 clients have already been, which is great. So one client is this cello down here, just down the bottom there. Oop, that one. And that needs a new bridge. It's not sounding good. The sound post is in an impossible place. Then I've got this violin where the bridge is too high, and I'm actually going to do it. The client's just waiting outside, and it's something I can do while they're actually waiting out there, because it doesn't take that long, and that way I don't have to keep the instrument here, which is always good, because as you can see, my workshop isn't all that big. So what's happened here is that the fingerboard has dropped over some time, and so the bridge just needs lowering to adjust it, and life will be so much more fun for the player. So I have marked this in now. I am going to do the lower action. Check this out, how much I have to take off. So I'm just going to cut that down. The bridge was quite thin, so I actually don't have to thin it down afterwards, which is great. A lot of makers make the bridges a bit too thin. It just doesn't sound as good. But okay, 34 millimeters is the string spacing. Oh, it's going to make life a lot easier for the player. Alright, also need to thickness this. Then I'll be sanding it, and then it should just about be ready to go back on. Just popping on some oil, and then now I'm going to put some graphite and the string grooves, and that should sort the problem. I'm also going to just adjust the sound post. It's going to make the instrument sound a whole lot better. Okay, I'm just going to give that a quick try. This one, so that works well again. Fantastic. Now my next client is here. All right. Oh, wow. Okay. So that was a really busy time. I made myself a cold brew coffee. No, it is not some kind of alcoholic beverage. It's evening now. So I just had 8 clients. I had 9 on the books, but 1 forgot. Had somebody found an old violin in the rubbish. It's quite a nice instrument. I'll show it to you actually. I'm going to restore it. It'll be available for sale at some point. It's an old German instrument, but it's really beautifully done. Then I had a cello that hadn't been played for about 15 years. That's the one that you probably saw on the video. I had a bow rehair, another cello with a buzzing problem. So that one I actually have to finish for lunchtime tomorrow because the student is doing their exam and it's a bit of a short notice emergency repair. What else was there? Oh, 2 people bought bows, one violin bow, one viola bow. I actually just got one out for you to look at. So that's my Fleuriel carbon fiber bow, but it really made her sound good, so that was exciting. And the other player was a 16-year-old violinist, and she bought a bow as well. Anyway, I have to check out this cello now. I'm gonna take the clamps off a couple of the repairs that I did this morning and see if I can take the next step just to move forward. But first of all, I want to try out this cello because I need to figure out what's making the buzzing noise. Alrighty, okay, so it's a buzzing noise. This cello makes a buzzing noise on the C string. Whoa, that's loud. Wondering if it might just be the string. So I'm going to take a C string off a different instrument and give that a try. Alright, let's try again. String. I don't know, I mean, I think the Larsen string actually sounds way better. Like it's right. Yeah, so personally I think I need to just plane the fingerboard and get some new strings on this instrument. I think I might talk to the teacher and see what he thinks, but I reckon a set of Larsen strings, and yeah, a set of Larsen strings, adjusting the sound post and planing the fingerboard will probably do a whole lot more for the instrument. Okay, phone call time. Hi Cam, it's Olaf here, how you going? I put on a Larsen C. Immediately the sound on the C is so much better, and also the buzzing slowed down a fair bit. So the bridge, I'll just possibly make it a little bit higher. You'll probably get a better result with the strings, the planing the fingerboard and the sound post than with a bridge. But for me, what's important, you know, what's important, the kid's got an exam, I just want to get the instrument working as best as possible. Alrighty, okay, well, I'm in limbo on that one because the teacher has to contact the student. Hopefully I'll be able to get it done in time tomorrow. I'm only human. Okay, so we'll get on to the next few things. I was hoping to do some bow rehairs. That didn't happen, but hopefully I'll be able to do them. Now, I can definitely take the clamps off this violin here. Alright, so I'm going to glue in that bottom block next. Yeah, so I've glued together the bottom block, and there's also some of the lining here has come off, so I'll do those things all in one go. I have this really amazing clamp. I'll show it to you. Alright, and this is the clamp. It's a special clamp that you can actually even use when the instrument is closed to glue on the bottom block. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, now I need to move really fast. That's good. Now the only other thing I'm going to do is some of this lining is loose. So the lining is the this here, it makes the ribs thicker. I'm going to glue that on. Got these little clamps here that are really good. I'll end up putting a whole lot on. Okay, that's looking good. I am going to put that on the desk to dry. I'm also just going to put some cleats on this top plate from before, and I think that's where I draw the line for today. Alright, I've just got to cut these to size, like I've got to plane them, get the width right. I'll just cut the ends off. There we go. Alright, that's going to make life easier for later. I'll just glue these guys on. Okay. I have to use these slightly larger cello clamps because there we go. There we go. I'm just going to leave it on my desk. I'm going to drink another sip of coffee and I am going to finish up for today. Cheers. Alright, good morning. It is day 2 of a couple of days in my workshop. This was another instrument. I'd worked on it yesterday, but I just did a bit more gluing. I'd done some of the tracks, but I also glued some cleats on. So this morning, first thing I'm going to do is basically I'll just take all the clamps off. I've turned on my glue so I can do the next step in the gluing process. So this instrument is also, so this is the other of the 2 instruments that had fallen apart. This instrument, the bottom block, has also come off. So I'll be gluing that bottom block back on. That's the back of that instrument where I had glued the back joint together and also the button at the top. So I'll take those clamps off and just see how it all turned out. Let's have a little look. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. So on the back here, I'm going to have to do literally from end to end reinforcement cleats because it had fallen apart. So that's going to be cleats. I'll be doing that today. The other instrument, that's kind of the other way around. So on this one, I had taken the top off and I finished gluing the bottom block and a lot of the lining. Okay, let's have a little look at this. This should be in here. There we go. So I'll put this aside. Then these lining clamps. Alright, and some of the linings on the back here are a bit loose as well. So that'll be something I'll glue fairly early today. That's coming together nicely. Alright, I'll leave that sitting aside. And then I had these 3 reinforcement cleats. So I'll take the clamps off that. So that's come together nicely. I really don't know what to do with this bass bar. It is so chunky. I think I'm just going to cut it down to the right size because the instrument will just end up sounding terrible. It should just be, you know, just a few millimeters, like around sort of 3 to 4 millimeters at the end here. And the middle of the bass bar is usually right where the bridge sits. That is like 18 millimeters high. That is just ridiculous. I'll cut it down to 13. Great. This is slide. But once my glue is hot, I will definitely glue those things, because that'll give me, I should be able to close at least one of the two instruments by tonight, and I think that one is probably a good candidate. Fantastic. Happy with that progress. But I put all my clamps away. It's a pretty big mess on the table right now. But my bow rehairing bench is a total chaos, and I have at least 3 bow rehairs to do. I want to make sure I clean that up. Just over here, and it's bad. Anyway, I'm going to quickly clean that up. Okay, fantastic. All right, so I have to just clean all the parts. The wedges actually look quite good. They're wedges that I have made, which speeds things up a lot. So that's always good. All right, let's get cleaning. So this is not a super expensive bow, so I can use my little buff for cleaning. I wouldn't do this on an expensive silver bow. There we go, that's looking a whole lot better, isn't it? Ooh, look at that reflection.
It's a different cello now.
Yeah, fantastic.
So Olaf, all you really did was just shake down the fingerboard.
I played the fingerboard, adjusted the sound post, and changed the bottom 2 strings.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Oh,
and
awesome.
he will be very thankful also.
Yeah. Well, so good to hear. The cello teacher was really happy. I mean, what a wonderful player. He's got some really good students, but you can really see the importance of having an instrument that's really well set up, because when it arrived yesterday, it had a buzzing noise, and the C and the G just didn't sound very good, and even the upper 2 strings didn't really have that ring, and you could really see what he could get out of the cello. So it makes a big difference to have that good setup. Anyway, it's lunchtime, so I am going to go for a bike ride and meet a friend and have some sushi. Whew, another bike ride. Okay, so Coralie just rang me. There is a client standing at my door with a soundpost emergency. I'll head back and adjust the soundpost. Okay, so I had my lunch and came home, and I had to help a lady with a 3/4 size violin. The son has an exam tomorrow, and the soundpost just wasn't quite right, so the violin was sounding really small. So I adjusted the soundpost, it's sounding a lot better, but also I discovered that the string height at the nut was twice as high as it should be. So I use like these little feeler gauges, and the string height on the G should be about 0.5 millimeter, and it was over 1 millimeter. So that's twice as much. It's the same as trying to run a 100-meter race with a big weight strapped around your waist to make you heavier. Anyway, back to my bow rehair. Okay, time to get back into that bow rehair. Now to the spreader wedge, which pretty much finishes the rehair. Okay, that's all done. That just needs to dry and stretch a little bit. It's always one little wayward hair. And there we go. I'm just going to let that stretch. Alright, so I'm going to do a little bit more gluing. I'll see if I can get that violin glued shut that I worked on yesterday. And today, so I'm going to definitely lower that bass bar, and I definitely need to undo all these clamps. Yeah. Better put these clamps on their right spot. So now we have to make sure that this top plate goes back on in one piece. I definitely want to clean underneath the fingerboard because that's really hard normally. Just going to polish over the top a little bit. That's looking amazing. All right, now, oh yes, that's right. So I've got to work on this bass bar. Okay, here we go. Now that looks a whole lot better. I'm going to also just trim the ends to get the ratio right. Okay. Okay, so that looks a whole lot better. I've just got to adjust these 3 cleats. I have already done the one on the back of the instrument while you weren't watching. Okay, that looks a whole lot better. Now I'm just going to take a look and see how everything fits together. And then I'm going to glue the top plate onto the instrument. Want to check the string height as well, just make sure that oh yeah, no, that's good. Cool. All right, I can get my clamps ready and glue this up. Always got to move very quickly. Okay. So that's that. I always like doing the middle clamps first. That way I can get the edges all even. Like I want to make sure that the edge spacing is totally even. Going quiet. Don't worry, all is well. Just have to concentrate that little bit more. Okay, that's looking quite good. Just double checking that all the clamps are tight. A little clamp down the bottom as well. Alright, I'm happy with that. Yeah, I'm very happy with that in fact. I think we're just going to leave that as is. And I'll put that on my bench to dry. Great. Okay, so before I go and finish up, this is the instrument, the Magini copy I was working on yesterday. It's an older German instrument, so I just want the varnish to look a whole lot better. And I just want to get 1 or 2 coats of varnish on there. Okay, let's have a quick look. Alright, that's looking a whole lot better already. So I'll probably put 1 more coat of varnish and then I will polish that violin and I can really start working on all the finishing touches. So tomorrow is a Friday, so I'll finish those bow rehairs. I will probably get a long way to finishing this violin like cleaning and polishing it. I may possibly even add a third day just so you can see one instrument get finished. Anyway guys, I will see you tomorrow morning, Friday morning. Good morning, it's day 3 of the life of a violin maker. It's about 9 o'clock and I have another big day planned. So that'll be really exciting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some clamps, like I'll take the clamps off that one instrument. I'll get the next one ready to glue up. I'm going to work on the Magini copy, and I might even see, I don't know, it might be a bit ambitious, but I might see if I can get some strings on there so you can hear it. I will have to set up a new Pierre Lamont master violin, which I've actually done most of this. So this one, my son has already serviced the pegs, so the pegs are working nice and smoothly. We've planed the fingerboard. I still got to do the bridge. I've got the tailpiece already. Yeah, I sold one recently to a player and he absolutely loved it. So a young player actually. So I'm very excited to set up a new Pierre Lamont master violin. This bridge is a little bit interesting because there's a dent where the bridge goes in the top plate, so it has to be fitted slightly round. Anyway, it's all doable, but that's looking really good. Now I can just mark the height and then I'll be able to carve the bridge. Now, while you're only seeing one bridge, I have actually been working on a second bridge for that Pierre Lamont master violin that I'm currently setting up. So I've got both of them at the same stage. So I'm just going to mark in the strings and then I can sand the bridges. So I'm just sanding 2 bridges at once because it's easier with the sandpaper. Now I just got to oil the bridges and then put my stamp on and they will be all done. Alright, time for the stamp. Perfect. I'll put these 2 aside for when I need them and I'll keep working on this. I'll adjust the nut height. Okay, so this violin's all ready to do the polishing. Put one more coat of varnish on and then I'm gonna head to lunch. It's a beautiful day out there, so I'll probably end up going for a longer bike ride today. But I'm meeting my daughter for lunch, so that'll be fun. This varnish is interesting. I'm just gonna test just on a little area. literally using methylated spirits here to dissolve some of the varnish because it's got this ridiculously strong crackling. So I'm trying to see how I can best even that out without losing too much varnish. Yeah, that seems to be working, so I'm going to do that a little bit more while I go out on lunch. That can all dry again so I can polish it afterwards. Alright, so I'm just going to let this dry over lunchtime, and then after lunch I'll do some polishing on it. Time to go for lunch. It's just such a beautiful day out today, and look at that incredible view. Just amazing. Okay, I'm back from lunch, so I will keep working on the violin. Just put a bit of metho on there and dissolved it. I'm going to do that again and then start really polishing. It's quite a thick varnish, so it's fairly safe to sand. And now I will, just put some metho on top just to basically dissolve the top layer of varnish, and that's going to allow me to polish some of that varnish into the cracks. It's a little bit too far. So I'm just putting it into the correct theoretic position and then see how that sounds. Next week I will probably just give it one more try just to make sure everything's perfect. That's nice. I'm really happy with that. I do want to give it a little bit more of a tweak, so I'm going to hang it up, but I'm going to put one of these stickers on it. A really beautiful top plate, stunning back. I really love the shading, and of course it's got my logo, which is always nice. Okay, now I'm going to keep working on polishing that Magini copy. That is actually looking fairly good, but I'm going to sand it over one more time and do another lot of polishing. And I'll sand it with some water, that way I don't take off too much. The violin's starting to look a whole lot better. It's got a really thick varnish, and the varnish underneath was a little bit softer, so it formed these cracks. The way I get around it is by softening up the varnish, the top layer of the quite thick varnish, and spreading it around. I keep doing that, and eventually, while it's still soft, I actually polish it a little bit. So I'm going to give it one more polish today, and then I'm just going to let it rest for the weekend. So here we go, last polish for today. And the top layer of varnish is really soft, so it's actually filling those cracks quite well. It's having no effect on the color, which is good as well. People ask me their opinion of varnishes. Like, every instrument is unique and different. Some varnishes are really hard wearing, some are really thick, some are soft, some are harder. There's oil varnishes, spirit varnishes, and God forbid polyurethane varnishes, and like synthetic varnishes, which I really dislike working with. You got to treat each instrument individually, and knowing how to treat each varnish has a lot to do with experience. Obviously, there's a little bit of trial and error, so I always test what a varnish is going to do if I don't know it too well. But have a look, it's actually starting to look quite nice. It's definitely shiny, but I can still see quite a few of those cracks from the varnish. But it's hardening. It's a very hard varnish, and that's going to have an effect on the sound, I think. But there's not much I can do about that. Okay, there we go. Whew, fabulous. Okay, so there you go. I didn't get all the work done that I thought I might. I've basically served some clients. I set up some instruments. You saw me set up my Piedmont. I did a whole lot of gluing, a bow rehair, some bridges. I actually bought a violin that was sold to me for $400, and it had been left on a curbside collection. That's right, curbside collection. So someone dumped the case on the side of the road. Someone bought that and then they on-sold it to me for $400. It is an old German violin. Quite interesting. It'll take a bit of restoration. Now the back is totally fine, but the top actually has a few cracks in it up here. It was antiqued at the time, so my guess is this could be 1880s or somewhere thereabouts. It's even got fake cracks in it. Look at that. That's actually a fake crack. But it's got a really beautiful varnish. It looks amazing. It's got an extra turn on the scroll there. Take a look at that. It's got unusual purfling, like the inlay. Notice how it goes, you know, it's sort of doubled. But yeah, that'll be a beautiful project to restore, and I'm really looking forward to hearing how it sounds. It's got a fairly flat arching, but it's also got a lot of open joints. But I'm looking forward to restoring that violin and see how it turns out. I might even make a whole video about it. Well, that's me. I am finished for the week. We've got a long weekend coming up. King's birthday. That's right, we celebrate the King's birthday. He doesn't really have to do anything with Australia anymore, apart from, you know, us having been a colony, English-British colony years ago. But anyway, that's that. So I hope you enjoyed watching me work for the 3 days. Maybe let me know in the comments what else you would like to see me do. If you're a string player, remember, the way your instrument is set up makes such a big difference to the way it plays. And then if you also optimize the sound, you will get a whole lot more joy out of playing. So keep making beautiful music, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!